Sasha, how's it going?
Great, man. How are you?
Thanks.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. I was wondering if you could get us a little tour of downstairs. I heard there's some fun things happening down there.
You want to see our new spaceship, right?
Oh, of course.
Come in. Yeah, so we've been busy last 6 to 7 months installing a lot of new equipment. And they ended up in spaceship silos.
Amazing. It looks great down here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We're getting there, not long to go. So all of our single origins, all of our blends, like each silo will be designated for certain coffee. And then from here, the actual coffees are going all the way to packaging machine. So we'll be able to be a lot faster, and most importantly, our team will not need to carry as many bags as they used to. So.
Well, I actually also wanted to talk to you about the next stage of processing, which is the demucilage process.
So that's what it's about, right?
Of course.
All right, sure. What would you like to talk about?
Well, maybe the first thing is, what do you think of the demucilage process?
So demucilage process, in my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of that process. And the main reason I'm not a fan is because I feel that we reduce the potential of the coffee if we are using demucilage process techniques.
So, but how does the demucilage process work?
So the way it works is, as we mentioned before in our previous videos, we have a coffee cherry. Inside of the coffee cherry we have 2 seeds. They are surrounded with mucilage, like a lot of sticky, slimy stuff. And then the demucilage is like we have 2 very long, like drums, next to each other. And these seeds will fall in between these 2 drums. Now these drums are vibrating and shaking. And what that is doing is, and we can adjust, how close they come to each other. For example, for bigger beans, we can separate them a little bit more like Pacamara. Or for smaller beans, we sort of want to bring them a little bit closer. So we need to be careful that they adjust it properly, otherwise we can damage the beans. So beans are falling in between these 2 drums, they're shaking and vibrating, and what that is doing, that's actually stripping off the mucilage of the surface of the bean. And then it comes out. So it's really fast, it's really easy.
So how do you know when the process of stripping the mucilage is complete?
Well, normally after this demucilage process, beans will fall down, so you can sort of feel some of the beans in your hand. Number 1, have a look if there's no mucilage, you can sort of feel them. If they feel really dry, like a marble, they're scratching, that means there's absolutely no more mucilage in there. And also, in the same time, it's always a good time to have a look at these beans to see if there's any damage of the beans. If there is, then possibly these 2 discs are way too close, maybe they need to be separated. Or if there's still quite a bit of mucilage, it means we need to kind of bring them a little bit closer so we can strip more mucilage off.
So what are some of the positives of the demucilage process then?
Positives? Well, there's few positives, even though I'm not a fan of it. Like, for example, in Brazil, which is 30% of entire production, a lot of coffee comes from there. So by using a demucilage process in countries like Brazil, the positive is it's really fast. It happens immediately, which means it's a very low cost way to do processing. No fermentation tanks are required. Also, no water is required, which is really important for many countries and many places where there's no access to water. And time, as I mentioned, it happens right away. So instead of coffee fermenting for a day or 2 days, it's already done and it's ready to go to beds.
So there's quite a lot of positives. So why don't you like the process?
I mean, the biggest reason why I'm in a coffee is, of course I love people, but I love flavor, I love taste. And in my experience, by every time when we compare demucilage process against the dry fermentation, always dry fermentation would taste more. Main reason is that when we ferment coffee, we have a lot of microbes that we're using to ferment, such as fungus, yeast, bacteria, and all of this will play a certain role in order to enhance the flavor qualities. Of course, if we don't know what we're doing with fermentation, we can enhance the negative flavor qualities. So in that case, demucilage will be better because at least it's more consistent. But when we have a great understanding of fermenting the coffees, we can really use all of these microbes as the advantage in order to make coffee a lot more complex, a lot more tastier.
So you obviously have done the comparisons between dry fermentation and demucilage, and you've told us about those results. Does Honor Coffee use demucilage process coffee?
We don't use demucilage processed coffee. We've done comparisons in our farm in Nicaragua, in El Salvador, one of our longest farms that we've been working with in India used to do traditional processed coffee, and about 4 years ago they actually purchased the demucilage machine, thinking that, hey, this is going to be faster, it's going to be better, coffee is going to be cleaner, it's going to be more consistent. And we've done a few trials while I was in India, and coffee did not taste right. So we've decided to decommission that brand new machine and continue processing coffees within old traditional way with a natural fermentation or wet fermentation. So I think there's a place for demucilage coffees. As I mentioned earlier, like Brazil produces 30% of all of our coffees we drink globally, and quite large number they do is washed processed coffee. And the only way they can actually meet the demand and supply is to speed up things. So this demucilage coffee process really increases the production and everything else. Maybe if I can mention in a flavor, like why do I not like it? If I compare demucilage process against dry fermentation, I normally find that demucilage coffee, it tastes clean, it tastes consistent, but flavors are a little bit more cloudier, and they're not as expressive. With the dry fermentation, we can see these flavors a lot more cleaner, acidity is a lot more refined, and the mouthfeel is also sort of heavier or thicker, more pillowy, as opposed to silky and sometimes even watery.
So now that we've talked about the two different types of fermentation as well as the two different types of processing, where do we go next?
So I think next we're gonna go upstairs actually and cool down a little bit, because it's really cold here, so we need to sort of warm up. But before we do that, I think next time when we talk, we'll be talking about a different type of processing. I think we can talk about natural process, honey process. This really concludes, in my opinion, different wash process techniques. In the first set, we've discussed a lot about dry fermentation, then we discussed about wet fermentation, and now demucilaged process. And all of these things will actually be, representing of what wash process coffee is. I hope it was, valuable and useful. If there's any questions, when we do this post, please, write some questions below. We'll be more than happy to discuss all of these things in a little bit more detail if you would like to. Thank you.